very much. And Secretary of State, if I can just expand on what James Gray was saying there. There seems to be this slightly sort of crazy dichotomy at the moment of a sort of general public opinion of a lack of willingness to engage in operations, and that seems to be, matched with an ever increasingly dangerous world that we live in. Can you confirm to the committee that there is absolutely no reticence whatsoever to do what is required to protect this nation, and that the people we are asking to do that have everything that they require, and that and that includes the ability to protect themselves wherever we may ask them to deploy?
Well, certainly in terms of government, let me reassure you. Yes, we will deploy where we need to deploy to keep our citizens safe, and there's no reticence on behalf of government about that. You'll have seen the retiring Chief of Defence Staff's interview in I think the Telegraph on Saturday, where he picks up on exactly this point, that we do need to learn the right lessons from Chilcot, that there may be situations where we intervened in the wrong way, but equally we need to avoid a position where we don't intervene again, and that means we have to work harder, I think, at explaining the need for intervention, and to get over to the public that many of the issues we face, although these areas may seem far away from our shores, can become, unless they're tackled, very direct threats. And that extends, I think, whether it's peacekeeping operations down in Somalia or South Sudan, to our continuing presence in Afghanistan, where you have transnational terrorist groups that, if aren't held in check, can bring terror to our own streets. So I think as politicians, all of us, yourself included, Mr. Mercer, we have to continue to show to our constituents that there is a very direct national interest in dealing with these issues, much further back, and helping to stabilize fragile states, aiding states that are affected by insurgency, improving the training, of their soldiery, and in professionalizing, and reforming their defense ministries, and helping to eradicate corruption. All these things are part and parcel further downstream, or is it upstream? Further upstream. Yeah. Further upstream in helping to keep our country safe.
But at the moment, with the political, sort of situation we're in, you can confirm that between yourself, the Prime Minister, the service chiefs, the decision-making cycle at the top of government at the moment, there's absolutely no reticence to do what is required to keep us safe from the sort of things we've seen in Nice and elsewhere across the globe at this time.
No, I mean, to give you examples, I have authorised the deployment of another 250 troops to Iraq, in addition to the troops we already have serving there, to do further training in counter-ID, deployment of engineers and medics, and more force protection for the base in which they're going to be headquartered. That is an additional contribution to the fight against the Daesh. We have increased our commitment, our deployment in Afghanistan by around 10%. We'll be doing that over the summer. So there is no reticence about making these additional deployments. And we have also made it clear to our friends in Europe that where we can assist in the fight against terrorism on the continent of Europe, we are ready to do so. Offering to share intelligence, to deploy forensic assistance, and any other help that our allies require.
Sure.
And we have repeated that offer to the French government in the light of the tragedy at Nice, and the Prime Minister will be re-emphasising that when she meets the French President very shortly.
Okay, thank you. At the start of Optelic in Iraq, the MOD knew that it had capability gaps in relation to protected mobility and ISTAR, and that either could have had a significant impact on operations. Sir John Chilcot concluded that known gaps in such capability should always be clearly communicated to ministers. This resulted in ministers giving less than accurate answers to members of Parliament and by extension the public in response to questions. How do you ensure that practice does not persist today? And I must say, in my experience of this place, that there is clearly no conscious decision of anybody to come and say the wrong thing to a select committee or to the Houses of Parliament or Westminster Hall, whatever that may be. But there have been cases where we have seen over the last 12 months, whether it be the inquiry into mefloquine or how we look after our people going through the IHAP process, where ministers have said things that have been patently not correct. Now, there's no accusation of misleading or anything there, but how do we ensure that the ministers who come and represent these facts to the public, to us and by extension the public, are absolutely saying the right thing?
Well, ministers, Mr. Mercer, should be as correct as they can be when they appear in front of committees, and I'm sorry to hear the specific allegations that you're making, and I'll have a look at that. I'm not aware of ministers giving this committee incorrect facts, but if there's something you want to write to me about that, I'm happy to do so. I think your question really relates to: would there now be examples of where people down the chain of command had requested capabilities or equipment and it simply wasn't being supplied, and then perhaps they felt inhibited about challenging that? And that is, a question I've asked. I came in right at the tail end of the Afghanistan operation, for example, when a lot of the equipment was being brought back. But when I've asked it of people who served there, I'm pretty clear that certainly towards the end of that campaign, the military got what they thought they needed, and there weren't any restrictions on the capabilities on the equipment that was provided. It's probably worth emphasising that, and you'll know this better than anybody, that no force actually sets out with the perfect equipment in each case. Each campaign can be slightly different and may require equipment to be slightly reset, and that's why we have what's called the urgent operational requirement that enables us to reset equipment capabilities at relatively short notice to get the money out of the Treasury and to be able to move quite quickly to upgrade or reset what was originally planned.